This program is presented by the Human Family and made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is Our Right to Gaze, the Black Film Identities Empowerment Through Stories. We have some lovely panelists today. This is brought to you by the Human Family. You can find them at www.humanfamily-family.org. I want to thank you all for being here. We have some lovely panelists. I don't know if you guys have seen the movies yet, but I would challenge you and express my gratitude and graciousness to be able to see those movies, see those short films, and just absorb knowledge, as well as to see an outlet that is further been utilized in North America, but I believe that is stretched all over. So today we have Lande Yoosuf. She created The Love and Submission. And so Lande Yoosuf is a writer, director, and producer with over 12 years of production development and casting experience. Has worked with several networks, including MTV, NBC, WETV, True TV, Bravo, and others. As the co-founder and partnership director of Black Film Space, Lande works to contribute to increased control, ownership, and media management for content creators of African descent across all cinematic formats, content platforms. She has served as a host, workshop, facilitator, speaker, and moderator for events with organizations like Array, HBO, ABFF, Film Shop, BAM's New Voices in Black Cinema, The Root, legendary Chicago's legendary radio station, WVON 1690, and others. She has an affinity for telling stories that explore media influence, sociology, gender, race relations, pop culture, and self-image themes. Before I introduce the next panelist, I would like give Lande the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about herself and the different things that she's doing currently.
Hi, thanks for that great introduction. I'm a writer-director based in Brooklyn, New York, born and bred, first-generation Nigerian American. And oh, you're also Nigerian?
No, I love my Nigerian people, though.
I was like, oh! My short film Privilege Unhinged aired on Shorts TV, and now it's currently airing on the streaming platform via the Chicago radio station called Vaughn TV, as well as my second short called Second Generation Wedding. And I am developing a slew of feature-length projects that I am looking for financing for. So if you're interested in talking to me,
In our next panelist, we have Kyla Sylvers. She has created The Black Banshee. These were two of my favorite shorts that were here, so I was super excited to be able to be on stage with these panelists. So Kyla Sylvers is a trained actress, writer, producer who graduated from the University of Southern California with a bachelor's in dramatic arts. She has performed all over the world on stage, has had successful web series and short films along with TV work. She is currently in New York City, based in freelances with the Ramona's Model and Talent. She is seeking management to represent her as a multi-hyphenated actress, writer, producer, and model. She is also the co-founder of Melanin and Magic Productions. The company has a comedy drama web series out called Finding Our Way, along with domestic violence short film called The Way Out. There are other short films. The mythological horror thriller, The Black Banshee, is a short story that serves proof of the concept for a pilot with the same title. The film has screened at the San Diego Black Film Festival, San Francisco Black Film Festival, New Faces, New Voices Film Festival, 1261 Festival, and many more. It was an Audience Choice Award winner and recently received distribution as a part of the Emerging Black Filmmakers Collection with full spectrum features. The Aluminum Theater, the NW Film Forum, and the Collective Circle. If we could allow Kyla to tell us a little bit more about what is happening in her life and the things that she has going. You might be muted, Kyla.
Can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so weird. I'm not muted. That is strange. Anyway, thank you for that introduction. I just want to say, because that bio is not updated, that I am not looking for any kind of representation. So don't worry about that. I already have some. But thank you so much. Yeah. So what am I doing now? Yes. So I have the representation, but I am also working on a feature, a fantasy buddy comedy feature, the pilot for the pilot version of the Black Banshee, as well as a science fiction dystopian podcast that I have in development. I also have some shorts like in different stages of development that I'm looking for grants for. That's pretty much it right now. Everything's in development, but I'm really excited because a lot of stuff is going to be happening over the summer and the end of the year. And I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first question that I have for the panelists is, how has the pandemic either impacted or uplifted the work that you are doing currently?
I was just thinking about this. So this is very, very funny that you brought this up. So for me, okay, I know this is like, strange, but the pandemic for me allows me time to focus on what I needed to focus on. And I finished probably more scripts than I ever have in my entire life. I was able to create like a packet of things. I was able to make pitches and pitch decks and just get kind of all my stuff professionally in order. And I was also able to get my health in order. I made some doctor's appointments, got my teeth fixed, did a bunch of stuff, because I had time. So yeah, I think for me, it actually, as much as like, I took a financial hit. I know a lot of other people who have dependents. I don't have any dependents, but also took financial hits. So that aspect was not fun, but creatively, health-wise, I'm probably the best I've ever been. So it pros and cons, but I think it actually kind of positively impacted my life, even though the world is, still on fire. But yeah, it's been mine.
I would second that. The pandemic was definitely like rough, especially initially, because I had like a lot of things lined up last year that I was really excited about, but Corona took over. But it made me realize like, I have a few shorts under my belt and I still want to make shorts, but I also need to make longer form content and like commit to the long process of developing these ideas and trying to get financing. It's like, why delay it? So, and then also seeing like my productions as a collection under an umbrella that is a production company, and it's not just an LLC that I created so people can give me a certain type of check, but it's like a business. So that mindset shift, I wanted to have that mindset shift, but I initiated the shift in real time. And I'm still like actively working on that. Aside from being like a director for hire. Yeah.
Absolutely. Another question I have is, in both of you guys' short films that are displayed, The Black Banshee and Love Submission, representation was one thing that came to mind right away. So what does racialized representation mean in the films that you create?
You want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that, for our story, it's like a Black American woman and an Ethiopian American woman. So first of all, there's diversity ethnically there. So I think that a lot of times the film industry, when they see Black stories, they kind of put us all under one umbrella. And we have such diverse experiences, like even just like Black Americans alone, like someone from New York is not going to have the same view as someone from like South Carolina. And that's not factored into the way production kind of unfolds. They kind of just see us all the same, or they're like, okay, Americans do this, and then Africans have tragedy, and so I think that this film was a great exercise for me as a director to clearly there was tension there. There was like some opposition there, right? but showing the humanity from both characters, from both perspectives, and allowing them to express it through these like cultural and ethnic identities was really, really awesome and fun for me as a filmmaker, because I've never done that before. So yeah, and then also I'm Nigerian American, my family's Muslim, Antu, is Ethiopian American, her family's Muslim. So I think that we both connected to being, having these dual identities and existing in the diaspora, but also having like heavy amounts of exposure to our families, like ethnic lands, and, cultural expressions and things like that. So once those elements were in place, I definitely was like, I'm signing up to do this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, racialized representation, obviously I make genre films. So even in that particular bracket of filmmaking or TV making, there's just like never really any Black people. So I think that like I'm creating this lane for us to be represented in, like just in general, just having Black people there. And obviously this tells a specific like story about a Black American problem, but it's kind of just like, okay, this is a lane that we haven't explored in general, whether we're Black. I'm from Chicago, so whether we're Black Chicagoans, Black New Yorkers, Black South Africans, it doesn't matter. It's just like we're rarely reflected there, even though we've existed throughout the world for centuries and millennia, and even though we would more than likely exist in these fantasy worlds, like so it's strange that we're omitted from it anyway. So really, I see it as like bringing us all in, and there's so many stories that have not been explored. Like we're descendants of an entire continent. Like Lande was just saying, she's from Nigeria, Antu's from Ethiopia. That's two different sides of the continent, and like there's so much history and folklore and things that we have from our own continent and from different countries. Like every country has their own fantasy and folklore. There's so many stories that haven't been explored, and even how Black American culture has evolved. There's so from our ancestors, so it's like there's just so many stories in that genre that haven't been explored or touched upon or even thought about, really. So when I think of it, I think of it in that way. Like I'm trying to like open the door, and kind of bring as many people as I can that are Black.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Things I thought about right away when both of you kind of gave these responses is, one, Black people are not monoliths, right? Like you got to think about the heritage, the ethnic heritage, but also the religious backgrounds and traditions that might not be what people deem as the status quo. And then I think about like the danger and the power of telling one single story about a people group, right? Like when we just connect people only to an entire continent, right? Like when there are so many countries inside that one continent and it has so much power inside of it that when we tell this one story for what it means to be an African or what it means to be a Black American, a lot of times it's due to stereotypes that are almost always a negative connotation. And so these films gave me that empowerment also. Like it responded to that representation in a way that all these characters had unique differences, unique abilities and different voices. It came from different backgrounds and things of that sort. And so it also made me think about the word integrity. So the word integrity comes from the word integer, meaning whole. And so I'm wondering, what does it mean to be authentically whole when making a film and living in your own skin?
Wow.
I know.
I gotta like really think about that.
I know, authentically whole and living in your own skin. I don't know. For me, at least with the story I was trying to tell, and I was trying to say a couple things with this story, but one of the big things is like how Black people love, how Black women are just as much a part of this police violence movement and just as much are victims of this police violence movement as Black men. How Black people try to find joy even when it's hard, and in the different ways we handle situations when we're in crisis, right? And those are things to some degree that I've experienced, right? Like I haven't necessarily experienced like police brutality, but I've witnessed it, right? Or, you know, so it's just like, so when it comes to like living authentically, it's like, I've experienced having joy and having that uprooted by racism, by encountering something racist, like, you know, so it's like, for me, and I've dreamed, you know, obviously I haven't experienced, you know, seeing people die, but, you know, I have like experienced finding my own superpower in whatever way that is, or when you have an inkling that something isn't right and you don't do it, and then you find out why you shouldn't have, you know, and that it was good that you dodged the bullet, you know. So I've had those feelings. So putting that into a story and making something authentic or real out of that was pretty easy, you know. And as a Black woman and a Black person, you know, every time I see police brutality inserted in these shows, it's always with the token Black character. It's always the same lesson, the same speech, and yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, it's clearly written by white people. So I was just like, if we're gonna actually talk about this, let's talk about, you know, what it looks like to be finding joy in life and to have it just abruptly end because of something that is so out of your control. What is that like? You know, and how do you, what would you do in a situation like that if you saw it before it happens, you know, like, would you avoid it or would you go and try to fight, you know? And so these were things that were important to me to ask myself, not just give somebody a stern speech on why you can't talk back to the police, you know, or whatever. Like that to me, I wasn't like interesting, you know? So that was me, you know, putting together my story along with other stories I witnessed. So telling that authentically, it feels easy because it's my experience and it's my family's experience and my people's experience and men I've dated experiences who are Black, you know, so it's like so many, you know, people's experiences. So, and it's not just something I watched on TV or I saw from afar, you know, because I don't belong to that group. So I think that's why, you know, I was able to tell it authentically. And that's what that kind of means to me, is taking my story, my people's story, and telling it our way, and not the way that somebody else thinks that we should kind of sort of insert it into their story that's really about white people, you know? This is about us and our experience. And I think that's how I brought the authenticity, and that's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot to follow up, but it's good. And, you know, as I was saying before, like, I personally come from an ethnic and religious background that is related to the characters in Love and Submission. So I think that just being an observer of it alone gave me an advantage as a director in telling the story authentically. And then also, you know, I think discovering ourselves, like doing work on ourselves, allows us to ask questions as creatives that we can then put into our work. And, you know, for me, I know that when I make films or I participate in projects, I wanted to I want to at least make Black people ask questions like, okay, I'm watching this scene unfold. What does this mean in my own life? Or how can I interpret this in something that I thought about at some point? And then take that question and bring it to the person sitting next to them. And then by osmosis, everybody's just talking about it. Like, I love when films generate those kinds of discussions because it allows us to, you know, not only be entertained, but to get value from this like huge effort, you know, because films are expensive and are labor intensive, right? This huge effort that this creative made to not only tell a story, but to share something that could at least, you know, prompt and incite discussion and reflection. And, you know, and then lastly, not only was this film about like, you know, Black Muslim women, but I think it was also about an aspect of their social experience that deserves like inquiry. Like, is this something that's still necessary? Does it work? Does it not work? Right? Like those types of things. And I think it's great to watch that via film rather than like arguing with someone in the room because we're just waiting to react and respond. Whereas with a film, you sit with it and you think about it and you digest it. You might watch it again. You know, like the processing experience is different. And that's what I really love about the medium of film also. So yeah.
I love that. So now I'm gonna ask y'all some particular questions just about your film in general. So in Love Submission, the scene where she destroys the painting, is that symbolic? And what is it symbolic for? Because it left me like with so many questions. And I was wondering, like, there's a picture of her and her husband. Like, why didn't she destroy that? But she destroyed what he made for her. Like, there was a lot going on in my head when I was watching it. And I don't know if that was purposeful, but yeah, let us into your life real fast.
Sure. So I'm going to do my best to speak on my interpretation of that scene because Antu did write it. But to me, I think her destroying the painting that he made for her is her breaking the illusion of what she thought her marriage was, which is that, she thought her husband was like totally enamored with only her.
Right.
She didn't know that he had this whole nother situation going on and that he was even into that lifestyle. So, when you get news like that, you want to break everything. You definitely want to break the things that have the sentimental value that are attached to your romantic relationship. It's kind of like, why did you make this painting? Did you do it to pacify me? Did you do it because you really loved me? Do you just think I'm pretty and that's why you have, I'm sure if that was a real life character, she would be thinking all of these things. So yeah, that's what I would interpret that scene as. At least that's what I did as a director.
Absolutely. So Kyla, in the Black Banshee, what I seen with this vision was kind of like the foreshadowing of Black women's intuition. Am I off, or was that similar? Like, let us know a little bit about that.
That's funny you say that because that's me, like in real life. If I feel it in my body, I'm not doing it. So, and when you write, things are a reflection of you, and I think a big reason why I made it a Black woman, I'm about to say literally what you just said, but I feel like Black women, we just be knowing, like, and we be trying to tell our dudes, but y'all don't be listening. And so we just be knowing. So when I came across Banshee folklore, which is part of Irish folklore, and it's like, I loved it back in the day when I used to watch Teen Wolf, and it became a part of this greater story I'm trying to tell. And I found out later on that my great-great-granddaddy was Irish, so it became part of this whole like, oh, I'm gonna talk about all my ancestors. So it's like me putting all my history together and stuff. So she is the only character in the show that has powers that didn't originate from like West Africa, right? But Banshee folklore is Banshees are always women, right? So when I was making this, I was like, Black women, we if I'm gonna tell this story, this supernatural story, it makes sense that I would incorporate the Banshee and make her a Black woman because we already be having those feelings anyway. So yeah, it was me taking like, because obviously we aren't I don't know, Black women are kind of superheroes in real life, but we aren't like literal superheroes in real life. But when I took these powers and applied them to her, I was definitely thinking about who we are in everyday life and how we behave in everyday life. 100%. I just gave a very long-winded answer to your very short question, but yes.
Well, I think it's important to like never assume about a film, right? Because you have what the director wanted, you have what the writers wanted, but then you also have the perceptions and what was available in that time. So like for me, I thought about my mom right away, like, dang, like these visions, right? Like this intuition that is like magical. Like I could call my mom right now and she'll tell me like, son, like, did this happen today? And I'll be like, whoa, right? Like we live states away from each other.
Yeah.
So to go back to the love submission, can you talk about the multiple layers that were? It was short, but it was so complex, and it was just multiple layers that just kept stacking, and you never gave the entire answer. So can you talk about those layers a little bit?
Sure. I mean, there's again, there's the element of polygamy, right? That they're Black Muslim women from different ethnic backgrounds, children, pregnancy, marriages at stake, identity, the perception of one's life, just from one sentence or one from a picture, right? And then she made all the conclusions she needed to make just from that one moment. It's just really significant in showing how like what we think our lives are could like change just with like one piece of information. Yeah.
So in both films, there's like this sense of like minding my own business, right? And the problems are coming to me. Like I have been minding my own business. Could y'all expand on like either how that would feel or like how do you like show that in a film in a way that y'all did? Because it was very unique.
Well, I think first you want to create an arc, right? So you want however they start to be different from how they end up, right? And so I already knew where they were going to end up. To be honest, I already kind of knew where they were going to start too, because I had the story pretty early. But, I knew that like I wanted them to start from a place of joy. Too much of our stories. I mean, obviously this story ended up, I wouldn't say tragic because, she saved the day, but there is some tragedy in there, right? But there's much, much less joy, and there's much, much less love, and there's much, much less fun, and so I really wanted to show people having fun and people having joy and them ignoring the world. That alert that he gets at the beginning is the jumping off point, because that's who the cop mistakes him for. But when the film starts out, they're not thinking about that. They're closed off to the world. They're trying to have a good time. They don't care about this little alert. That don't got nothing to do with them until it does, of course, right? So I think that for, sorry, a little background noise, but I think that for me, it was important to show, again, going back to what I was saying about my personal life, right? Being in those moments of joy and then having them destroyed because of something that I can't control. Being at a bar and having someone like having a good time, my friends, going to get a drink and having someone look at me like I'm crazy and take orders from everybody else except for me, and having somebody else who's not Black have to call out the bartender's racism, like, hey, the girl's right here, so like you're having a good time and suddenly you're not, and so just things like that are so out of our control. And so that was really important for me in terms of art too, is to show that like Black people, one, we're gonna find joy wherever, right? But two, like whenever we are experiencing it, that's sometimes when the worst happens, and we, for years, we've built our own cities, we be minding our own business, having our own parties. Here come the cops, here come the white neighbors, here come this person, so that was important for me to show in this movie. That's it.
For the characters in my piece, I think confrontation was a big theme here too, right? Like the truth. They say the truth will set you free. At least the truth will set you in the direction you need to go, right? Like she had no idea, again, that what she believed her marriage to be wasn't a reality until this other character took the initiative of disrupting and shaking that. So, some people perceive that differently. Some people feel like, oh, how dare she? Why didn't she let the husband do it? And then some people say, hey, these Black women try to look out for each other and see how they can navigate this situation or not navigate it. But at least the truth is out on the table now. and no one can continue to engage in illusion, which is, I think, is important for our evolution, you know, as people. Like, we won't be able to get to any stage of our life without confronting hard truths. And sometimes those truths are presented to us aggressively, and sometimes, you know, sometimes they're not. Yeah.
So one question I had about the love submission is, did the family move there recently to that new town where the other family was living? That was the one thing that I was like, were they always there and it was like another family?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Scandal. Scandal.
And remember, she had children. The other one was having a hard time conceiving. So the assumption is, you know, maybe that's why he stayed with the other lady, you know? Who knows?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm Nigerian. These kinds of things happen a lot. I mean, not as much as they did in my parents' generation, but it's definitely a part of the experience, especially baby boomer and older.
Absolutely. So we possibly have folks in the community who are inspired by the short films that y'all have. If you could give an inkling of wisdom to the joy and the barriers that you've both faced as filmmakers, as writers, as producers, and different things that you guys do to the audience and to those who look like you.
You want to do that, Kyla? You go first. And then
Yeah. I just have to take myself off mute. I apologize if it's a little noisy in the background. But yeah, so you can't hear nothing. That's good. But yeah, so joys and barriers. Joys, being on sets, having people you love to work with. I think that's like the key. Like, that to me is the most important part that I've found, is making an active effort to find people that you love to work with. For me, for Banshee, we actually had people that we had worked with previously, or that we had wanted to work with and we were friends with already. So because we had done a couple projects before Banshee. So one of the great joys is just being able to be on a set filled with love. I don't direct, so there's usually a director on a set, but I try to make sure whoever I bring in leads with love, you know, and everything is kind of as positive as it could be. Of course, it's still a film set. Things are going to get stressful, especially if you're doing an overnight shoot, which Banshee was 2 days of overnight shoot. So things happen, but to be honest, everybody had a great time, and that is the honest to God truth. So, and that's like the most important thing, is that you're here to tell a story and you're here to work together. You're not really here to fight each other. You're on the same team. You know, and so that's something really important as far as like joy goes. It's just like working with really, really, really great people who understand the story you're trying to tell, and understand that at the end of the day, you're a team. As far as mishaps, I mean, no, I'm kidding. I think as far as mishaps go, or missteps, I think I learned a lot with my first 2 projects on just like how to vet people, what kind of, you know, people you should look for to work with, how much experience they should have, et cetera, et cetera. So there weren't a lot of missteps with Banshee. I think the biggest thing, and it's not really a misstep, it's just a hazard of making films, is that, you know, you have limited access to funds sometimes. So you have to kind of like pool all of your resources, and everybody on your team is like, I know this guy at this film studio, he'll give us chairs, and I'm gonna go ask this person if they could give us food and da-da-da. So it's less about missteps and more about just like how to get everybody, again, how to build a team that is all on board, right? And so everybody's trying to help everybody, you know, like we got our chairs that we use in between takes and for makeup from the director's friend, and we got food from a guy who I knew who owned a restaurant, you know, so it's just like different things you have to bring in. But we also got the bulk of our money like 4 or 5 days before we shot. So, you know, you do have, you know, there's that aspect as well. I think money is probably the biggest, you know, issue that I have found when creating stuff is just like, where do you find the money? But I think once you find the money, the next most important thing is to just find a team. And sometimes finding a team before you find all the money, because they may be able to bring in some money or, you know, things like that. Or just having a team may help other people feel like, oh, they have a team together, I can give them money, you know? So I think those two are the most important things. And once you have that together, I feel like everything else comes together. And just being nice to people. Like, I was working with the city of New York because we filmed at a park, and they were really nice to me, and they helped me, and I was, you know, super professional with them, and they helped me with something very, very, very last minute, and I'll be forever grateful to them for that. So also that, just, you know, being professional, being kind to people, you know, no one wants to work with anyone grumpy. So I think that's it. And using, like I said, your friends and people, you know, work with people who bring you joy. You know, don't always try to work up. It's nothing wrong with trying to meet Ava or whoever, but I think working across is key to everything. And yeah, I think that's it.
I agree with everything Kyla said. Work with your friends, seriously. And just make sure that your cinematographer and your audio person are competent. Like, that is very important. I mean, everybody said should be those two particular roles. Like, if you don't have good image quality and sound, like, you're going to lose people. It doesn't matter what you shot. So it needs to look good. And that might mean borrowing your friends like black magic for like 6 hours, and, you know, just figuring things out and paying him like $300. Like, you got to know how to negotiate, and then, you know, find someone, maybe you find an audio person that also has a lighting kit, right? And then y'all can kind of figure out, okay, maybe they, you know, they can finding a gaffer and use their equipment, you know, day of the set. Like, you have to be creative when you don't have a budget, and how you can position your crew and the people supporting you, and feed people. I have sets where people don't feed people, and pizza is not feeding people. It needs to be like a heavy meal. I mean, well, sometimes, you know, Kayla's like, I fed people pizza. Yeah, people don't like getting fed pizza unless it's the second crew meal.
That's,
you know, that's like more of like a smaller meal.
Feed people. That's great. I ain't never been on no set where somebody ain't feed me. I would throw a fit. My stomach's a bottomless pit too. I don't have time for that. No.
No, I mean, it's, or, you know, they run out of food. Like, you got to order more food. You have to. Like, don't be stingy. Like, come on. It's too much foolishness. And then you want the best performance out of everyone, but you're not feeding them and you're not paying them, right? Like, you gotta work with people. It's not, and also remember, like, it's not about you. It's about the project. It's about the project. Like, that's so important.
So important.
And that's why a collaboration to be more rewarding when you have that mindset going into it. And things are going to go wrong. That's production. Like, there's going to be mistakes. People are going to be late. You're going to get the wrong, you know, adapter to the sun or another. Somebody got to run to go get it. Like, just keep it cool, remain calm, because having the right is going to allow the right performances to come out. You know, when there's tension on set, actors are not as comfortable. Everyone's second guessing themselves. So being cool under pressure is important. That might mean you go to the bathroom and cry and then come back out, or you take a walk and you call your friend, you're like, and then you come back, you know. But you know, your temperament, how you treat people is going to really affect the outcome of the film. So it's really important to just be kind and be patient. Understand that production is really tough, especially when you don't have a big budget. So everyone's just trying to manage however they can, even if they might not necessarily meet your standards or meet your timeline. You know, you got to really be flexible. Like, that's so important. And then also join organizations to get support, get information. Like, you know, I know that a lot of people ponder whether or not they should go to film school. Maybe you should go to a few events, then make your decision, right? Like, do you want to be a part of the studio system? Films could be a good look for you. If you want to make indie projects, maybe, you could figure something out, or you combine the film school with like taking extra courses. I don't know, but regardless of whatever your strategy is, there's options out there if you want to make content in whatever role, whether it's as a director, a cinematographer, a writer, actor, there's room for Patty to eat and do well. So, yeah.
Another thing I want to jump in and say, you were talking about sound and camera. Another role that's really, I think, overlooked that's super important is your AD.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yes. If your train is not running on time, ooh, child, that can cost you money, like thousands of dollars type of money. So you need to make sure your train is running smoothly and that people are where they need to be when they need to be there. And when your director has got too many takes of a shot and he needs to move on because he only has 2 hours left and he's still got a bunch of other scenes to do, your AD needs to be tough enough to tell them you got to move on. They can't be scared of the director. They can't be scared to speak up. So making sure your train runs smoothly will save you a headache, will save your director a fit, because then they won't be like, why ain't nobody tell me I was behind? It will save everybody like a lot of time and a lot of money, because if you got to add an extra day, everybody gonna be mad, especially me, the producer, because I'm gonna pay all these people. So you got to make sure the AD is it's sometimes I think an overlooked,
underappreciated. Yeah.
Make sure your AD is OD on top of it.
I also want to add rehearse with your actors. The less experienced you are, rehearsals are so important because then you can really, really prep. And the actor will know what you want from them to tell the story. Push your actors. I have casted people and she was like, oh, I never acted before. I said, we're going to rehearse. I don't care. Like, I know that you can do it. So I'm going to push you. And I did like 4 sessions. I rented a room in one of these rehearsal places and we sat down for 2-3 hours. I get her to do the text over and over and over and over again until I was like, you got it. Like, we're good. And then we did another rehearsal with the rest of the cast. Like, rehearsing is so important. I am a stickler for rehearsals. I'm not comfortable shooting anything if we don't rehearse, because then I'm going to have to be fixing things on set and we're wasting time, So really important to rehearse.
That's powerful advice from somebody who doesn't do anything film related. I was like, AD, what's the AD? That I'm hearing all these things, and I'm like, the people who listen and know. So I don't need to know, right? It's about the project.
Assistant director.
Yes.
So suspense plays a big role in both films. Can y'all talk about what it takes to create and build suspense, specifically in a short film?
Well, I mean, I write dark stuff. So I will say, a short film. One thing that you have to know with a short film is that you only have so many pages to tell a finite story, right? Or a complete story. And so I think first you have to get that in your mind. Like, you have to drill that in your mind. I would even go so far as to say to give yourself a page count that you can't go over, right? So like for me, even with Banshee, I was like, we're not, I think because this scene is it kind of sort of taken from the pilot a little bit. And so it's a certain length in the pilot. And I'm like, okay, well, we're only going to have so many days to shoot. So this film cannot go past this amount of pages, right? So then once you have the amount of pages in your head that you can't surpass, then you're like, okay, how can I tell this story that I want to tell in this amount of pages, right? And so for me, obviously, I'm telling this kind of supernatural horror story. So there's a lot of like suspense there. So then it becomes, how do I drop that in from the beginning, right? So, because first you want to get as much of it on a page as possible so that your DP and your gaffer and your director all kind of have like already kind of know where you're going, right? You want it to be kind of a page turner. So it's like, okay, I need to like build kind of what's happening from the beginning. So in the very opening scene, I was like, we need to get a sense of something being off from the jump. So when it opens, we see that she sees something that's not right, right? And then it's immediately interrupted by, yeah, let's hang out, you know? But we already know from jump, hold up, what's going on? You know, and it helps that it's set at night, you know, and it's kind of nobody around, you know, and it's just them. And it's just like these Black people in the park at night and somebody seeing something she ain't supposed to be seeing, something gonna happen, right? So it's about dropping those little nuggets in the beginning. And then obviously she's shaking up, you know, and so that creates an energy between people because she's shaking up and they kind of know that something's off about her because the whole reason they're out in the first place is because she just got fired and they're trying to cheer her up. So they kind of know that she's like a little, which is a line that's like added right before the cop shooting. But so they kind of know that she's like a little down, but that's the whole point. They're trying to like, let's go to the park. Let's do this. Let's do that. You know, especially Misty. And so then, you know, and then I add in the whole thing with the phone because that and the alert, because one, we all kind of get Amber alerts or alerts to our phone about crazy stuff, right? So that was me taking this World War thing and inserting it into the story. And I knew at the end, it's going to be a mix up, right? Because white people love mixing up Black people, right? Especially, and then putting our lives on the line. And so I was just like, okay, we know that there's going to be this mix up. I need to insert that kind of foreshadowing in the beginning, right? So there's all of these kind of things that you want to kind of insert in the beginning to build to that climactic end. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned, even writing supernatural stuff and writing sci-fi stuff, is nothing should quite feel out of left field. You know, even with the show WandaVision, right? There's so many YouTube videos, all the Easter eggs or all the foreshadowing from episode 1 and da-da-da, right? So not every single word and line should mean something, and it should mean something to the entire story, and it should be building to something. So once you know, for me at least, once you know kind of where you're going, it becomes easier to figure out ways to kind of get there, right? And so, and then going back to how I said we needed to create an arc. So, and that arc kind of creates tension, right? Because like 3 out of 4 of them are trying to have fun, and one of them is like, you know, but her hesitation, we find out is real. You know, like, oh, wait, like we thought they think it's because of this one thing, you know, which is the reason they're out in the first place. But it turns out that her fear is actually something much greater and something real, you know. So I think then at the end, there has to be some kind of payoff, right? Because if it had been something small, it wouldn't have really meant as much, right? So I think wherever you're going has to be something big enough, and it has to be saying something interesting and complex enough where when it starts and you're building to that, it matters, you know? So I just made a lot of different points, but I think the important thing is to place nuggets in the beginning, to create contrasting dynamics, and to know where you're going, and to make sure every word you're saying is leading to that, you know? In some kind of way, right? So, or services your story in some kind of way, you know? And so, yeah, that's what I'll say about how I created the character. And then obviously the director and DP also do that with lights and costuming and pick up shots and transitions and all that as well. And I had a great team for that. And there's a lot of different conversations during production about that. So, yeah.
I would say for submission, you know, the pacing was like a key ingredient that we used. And then the way that we cut between the two characters, that already set up the opposition without any dialogue being necessary. So, you know, the way that the actors performed indicated that tension was on the horizon. And then, you know, those like pensive moments alone as well. It's like, okay, whatever is going to happen, it's something that's heavy, right? So it's using, and then the shadowing that we use, you know, the framing, all of those different things help also to set a particular mood so that by the time they encounter each other, it's clear, okay, this tension makes sense. because something's happening. Somebody wants to say something. They need to have a conversation. Like, it's clear. And so every time I talk to someone about the film, they're like, I was just thinking that whole time, what's she gonna say? Damn, so, and then we just kind of like slowly, built up to that until the moment came at the end. And I think Antu did a great job writing that out. So yeah.
I think that is almost our time. I'm wondering if y'all have any final comments, suggestions, and then where people can find new stuff that y'all got coming out. How can they support y'all and all those good things?
I would. Oh, sorry.
Go.
No, I was just gonna say, support Black indie filmmakers. They're all over Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. I'm always trying to find like new titles. Definitely support, because every stream counts. We really need as many eyeballs on our projects as possible, and there's a lot of good work out there. So please support. Not just on those platforms, but just in general, and the fact that people are like engaging with us tonight is like really awesome. So thank you for being here. And then in terms of supporting me, just follow me at Lande Yoosuf. See all the updates on all my projects. We're talking, Antu and I are talking about different ways to expand submission into something longer form. So that's also on the table, in addition to the projects that I mentioned earlier. I'm on a few feature narrative projects and documentaries via my company, One Scribe Media. And we're also on all social media platforms as well. So you can follow me, you can follow Antu Yakub, you can follow Love and Submission to Film to get updates on the film for tonight, and then my production company, One Scribe Media. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I agree. I think a good stepping stone is, say you're somebody who doesn't have access to a lot of filmmakers and stuff. I think a good starting point would be to follow us, because now you do. And then follow the ones in your life that and don't just follow, but actually click on their work, watch the work, support the work, comment on it, share it. I love when people message me and they're like, I watched your stuff, but I'm not gonna lie, a tiny part of me is like, but they ain't share it. Did they like it that much? So sharing it is so essential. That's how things go viral. That's how people get attention. That's how, people gain credibility. So sharing is super, super, super important. My personal Instagram is Sylvers, KSYL, V as in Victor, ERS. My company's Instagram is Melanin, like me, and Magic Productions. Again, that's Melanin and A&D Magic Productions. And if you follow me on one of those platforms, like on one of those pages, the other page is in the bio. So like if you follow me at Sylvers, Melanin Magic is in the bio, so you can just click it and follow it. And that's where you can keep up with all of our projects that we have going on. We also have a Patreon. Melanin Magic Productions has a Patreon that you could support. I would really, really, really love that a lot, because again, it's great to share and stuff like that, but also monetary support is super, super, super important for anybody. The same way you can buy an album for $15, you can buy your friend's indie project for $5 or $10. Like it's really, Rihanna, happy birthday, boo. But she is, one of the richest people in the world. She don't, need, you can buy the lipstick next week, So I think that's important too, to just know, like, actually I still can't believe she turned into the Avon lady. But anyway, different story. But the point is to actually give to people who are on the come up, who you think are really talented and who you could support. That's very, very, very important, because it will cost you very little to do that. And that's it.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Frederick Edwards. I'm the moderator of today, or the host or interviewer, whatever you want to call me. I'm a public speaker. I do a lot in the community, a lot of activism work, and a lot of just community educating. You can find me at Frederick Edwards Jr. at dash public speaker. This was brought to you, I want to say Sean brought me in, Sean Kaufman from the Human Family. You can find them again at www.human-family.org. thank you guys so much for your work. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to look for y'all online so I can support more indie work. And just shout out to y'all. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing. And I appreciate you. Thank you to the audience as well.
Thank you.
Thank you guys
so much.